All right, what is good, team? We are in for leg day. I think this is probably going to be like one of the last leg sessions before comp next weekend. I'll probably have one light leg session actually next week. This is probably going to be the last heavy, hard one. So we're going to spend some time. I've done my warm-up sequence, and I'm going to kind of shuffle it around a little bit, just kind of getting used to this new gym. I've actually found a leg press, which I'm going to have to alternate between sort of bilateral within our last program. I'm going to go unilateral leg press on this one, but it actually feels pretty good. So just going to get a couple of warm-up sets in, some high rep stuff on the adductor. I'm going to do my hamstring curls first. I'm going to do my leg extension second. Then I'm going to move on to leg press, and I'm going to squat last, mainly because it's cold, so my joints are feeling a little creaky and a little sore. I'm generally taking a little bit longer to warm up as well, just being a little bit colder. I'm just generally feeling pretty fucked up, so I'm going to try and do a couple exercises first in the session that I can get the most juice out of, that aren't going to tax me the most, and then I'll go into the heavy, hard stuff later on, which doesn't need to necessarily be that heavy. And as well, because I'm probably going to stack the leg press, I'll probably need to do it last after my quads are fatigued, so I think that'll be fun. We'll get stuck in that after this. Probably 2 sets here, aiming for around 20 reps on this adductor just to get warmed up. Ooh. All right, on to seated leg curls to kick this off. So I've spoken about this before, just about exercise sequencing, like adjusting your program. If the gym's busy, if the equipment that you need first in your session is busy, it's not the end of the world. You can just start different exercises at the start of your session. Just make sure you adjust load and intensity to kind of match what you had done previously. So obviously, prior to today, I would have done this last. I'm gonna do it first today, just because leg extension is busy, leg press is busy, and I'll need to squat at some point. So we'll get the added benefit of just a little bit more warm-up time, which is great. And I always find, specifically for me, and even for a lot of my clients, doing leg curl variations first in the session certainly helps alleviate any joint stress or pain for anyone that has like knees or knee pain or crunchy knees or just discomfort when they start squatting. Getting some blood in the hamstrings, getting some blood in the joints, I think is certainly a great idea. So why not? Certainly not chasing any PBs this week with my squat anyway. So spend a little bit more time warming up. If I match my loads from last week, I'll be happy. So I'll get stuck into these 2 sets, aiming for 10 to 15 reps here. I've just gone up 5 kilos from last week because I'm doing this first. So a little bit fresher, probably experience a little bit more performance increase here, but nothing to write home about. So we'll get stuck into this. Nice controlled reps, big squeeze at the top, really trying to isolate the hamstrings here. So it was 5 up from last week. 5 kilos up from last week, sorry. Same reps, 15 reps. So that was good. If I get 12 on the next set, I match last week's performance with 5 kilos heavier, which is a volume PB. Certainly not mad about that being this close to comp and this fucked up. But 1 set left. Little break, and we'll rip in. That was our 2 sets there. That was matched on last week's performance, which I'm very happy about. So we'll move on to leg extensions, and then we'll see how we feel. Might do single leg press first, and then finish on squat. See how these knees feel after leg extensions. But feeling pretty good overall, so life is good for the most part. Anticipating what is potentially going to be the biggest carb load I've ever done tomorrow. So we'll see. I've got to check in with Dean tonight, and we'll follow the boss's orders, see what he says is the plan for the next couple of days anyway. But we're getting so close now, so every day is a new opportunity to kind of just get a little bit better, tinker with the final result, make sure we're under the weight cap, and make sure we look good, we feel good, so we've got plenty of energy to be on stage looking our best and feeling our best. But let's get after it. Leg extensions, I've just taken a load increase on this week, so gone up 5 kilos. If I match last week's performance, I'll be real happy. 15 reps on the first set, 12 reps on the second set. And I have opted to put the seat back on this one. So this one is quite nice actually. So big lean back on the seat, a little bit more stretch in the rec fem, so that hip extended position. And it does allow the knees to kind of get a little bit more sort of flexed in the bottom as well, which is certainly advantageous for just training quads at longer muscle lengths. So get stuck in here, 2 sets, get after it. That was matched last week, 5 kilos up, 15 reps. One thing I cannot complain about during this prep was training performance. I think all things considered, if you're managing recovery or fatigue as best as possible, your gym performances should at least stay static or improve week on week. And I said this before, if you are getting weaker on your preps, you're doing something wrong. So fix your planning. Smith squats. So last week I actually did 3 sets on this, just because I hadn't figured out how to use the leg press situation here yet, because there was no 45 leg press. But after having a muck around with that single leg press, I'm going to do that last, just because it is pin loaded, it's cable machine. Probably going to do the whole stack for like 15, 20 reps. So rather than having to do really, really high reps on that, I'll go this, because this will be my heaviest exercise. It'll take me into that leg press a little more fatigued, so reps can probably come down a little bit, and I don't have to bust my ass as hard with those really high reps, which are pretty fatiguing, because this is only going to be one top set of like 6 to 8. So if I match last week's load. I had like 2.5 plates. See how that feels. If I can get close to there or even above that, I'd be really happy, and then I'll just move on to that leg press. So get a couple warm-up sets here, maybe 2, 3, and we'll get stuck into the work set. Oh yes, that felt very nice. So I actually jumped that up 20 kilos on last week, but because I'm only doing one set, just a top set 6 to 8 warranted a little load progression just to keep those reps lower, because doing that for high reps sucks. So that was my one heavy hard exercise, multi-joint compound movement, and then I move on to leg press. 2 sets, single leg, somewhere in the 10 to 20 rep range, I assume, based on how heavy that leg press was. But that was damn good. So squats are done, actually felt really, really good. Now moving on to leg press. So I had been doing this as like a bilateral leg press, 45 degrees. This gym doesn't have it, so we improvise. But actually had a really nice pin loaded, almost like a hip press here, which I'm gonna do single leg. It actually feels really, really good. 10 to 15 reps either side, 2 working sets to finish off this quad session, and then we'll get stuck into some calves and abs. But we'll get stuck in here. That is lower body quad emphasis done for the day. That was probably, I'm gonna say, one of the best sessions I've had in a long time. Despite feeling like crap, despite being like less than 2 weeks out from the show, that was really, really productive. So I'm very happy with that. And I think objectively, pump achieved on very little food, which is awesome. So job well done. But I think we've got one more session. Depending on what Coach Dean says tonight, it'll either be a rest day tomorrow and heaps of food, or it'll be our last low day and last training session before heaps of food on Thursday. Which either way, very excited. Just taking these sort of check-ins day by day now. And really, like I mentioned to you guys earlier in the video, things are happening on a daily basis, so we're really just taking it as it comes, and there's no point sort of getting upset or, you know, anticipating things, because things can change on a daily basis depending on how I wake up in the morning, body weight wise, look wise. We need to be pretty reactive with our planning and just sort of proactive in our strategy, but have flexibility within that plan to be able to change as needed. So word of wisdom for all you guys out there prepping is just enjoy the process, take it day by day, and enjoy every moment, because it's over quicker than you think, especially being up on that stage for a whole 5 minutes. You're gonna end up prepping for 6 months, so you want to enjoy that process. But as always, guys, if you get any value from the video, make sure you like, comment, share, most importantly, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow for whatever we're doing, which is gonna be exciting either way.